So we just want to take a moment for people to read this slide, and then we'll progress onwards. Go to the next slide, George.
Yep.
So for those who don't know me, my name is Kelly Ireland, and I work with George Havakis, who is the Director of GISA and all things A-SPEC, and Natalie as well, who has been helping us with all the event management and helping our speakers get all the right links, etc., for their presentation. And you're welcome to follow us on LinkedIn. We may or may not provide some insightful information via that channel, but we definitely will be promoting things around the specs and GISA. So if you follow George and GISA, then that would be useful. George? So a bit of housekeeping, professional learning. So you get 1 FPET point. Is it per hour, George? I feel like it is. Yeah, it's per hour for Surveyors Registration Board Victoria, and 1 general education point per hour for the Surveyors Board in WA. We do ask that you keep your cameras on, just because it's nice to talk to someone rather than initials, but that's also up to you. If you're dialing in and you're on your phone, please do not put us on hold, because we'll get your hold music. Just hang up and come back, because we'll still be here. Live Q&A. So we don't use the Q&A function inside Teams. We just use the chat function, or we take ourselves off mute and interrupt and ask questions as you think of them. So please do that. And if you put it in the chat, I'll keep an eye on the chat and I'll interrupt for you if you want me to ask that question. And then, as some of you may have already experienced, we do live polling throughout the presentations, and that's to gauge interest around different areas and to work out what's useful for you and what isn't. So you'll see those come up, and if you could please scan the QR code to participate and answer those questions, that'll be great. This is our event flow for today. So we'll do some snaps. So George will kick it off with recapping this year's series, which is the 6th national series, and he'll do some reflection on how far we've come and also where we're headed. And then Gaby Van Wyck, who we all know and love, will talk about some QGIS setup and other tech tips. And then we'll all get a chance to grow and learn from fireside chats and presentations shared by Fergal Coleman from Symphony, James Mant from Spero, and Sarah-Jayne Webb from Symphony 3 as well. So they'll be talking very AI focused, which is really an interesting subject for most of us, because it's if you're not using AI, the question now is why, as opposed to are you? It's like, why aren't you? And then George will do a wrap up and talk about what's next and pull out some highlights from this year's series. So I think I'm over to you now, George.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks very much, and good morning, everyone. My name's George Havakis, and I'll be leading this forum today, supported by Kelly. And just an update on the learn element. Gaby has just informed me this morning that based on the theme being AI, he's developed a presentation and some tips based on AI. So we'll wait and see what that presents for us. We first sort of touched on really the surface of AI, but this year we're going full throttle with AI as our central focus. And our speakers are positioning themselves and their companies as the architects of tomorrow's government operations, and we're really excited to be able to provide you with a front row seat. So, and then as we wrap up, I'll provide some of what the A-SPEC community can expect to occur over the next 3 to 4 months and potentially next year. So these snaps that I'm going to take you through are a result of some of the polls that we ran and also some of the discussions. But first off, rather than wait till the end, there's a number of acknowledgements I want to make. First off, to Kelly, our MC, she's been at all of our 6 national forums and really makes a difference, having a bit of brightness and light at the start of each forum. Behind the scenes, many of you may have had interaction with Melissa from our GISA team. She's been supporting our communications in the background, and of course, special thanks go to Kim Hess and Natalie Northey from Venues to Events, who manage the majority of our comms to you all and support our speakers to make sure that they have everything that they need to be able to present at our different forums. So thank you for that. So we're celebrating 21 years since the first release of D-SPEC, which was the precursor to A-SPEC. So for people who have been at other forums, you would have seen me talk briefly about that this started as a data capture exercise for stormwater drainage data. So that's probably why I've got a penchant for D-SPEC, Kelly. So, and little did we know at the time of its potential longevity. So, so there's a little bit of nostalgia. So it started off as a data capture process. It then morphed into a document with 4 initial founding councils, and 3 of which are still participating with the A-SPEC community now. And just to show you how we actually have progressed, at least visually, this was our first logo. So a little bit basic, but it did the job, and this was created about a year later. So, and you'll notice on the right-hand side, our table of contents, it was only 37 pages. So things were far simpler. So fast forward to 2025, and we now have a suite of specifications. So I'll talk about the bottom 2 for the moment. So the other 6 are pretty well established, as you'd probably know. T-SPEC has been planned for a very long time. It's still on the drawing board, and the intention is that at some point in time, we'll develop a specification that deals with telecommunications type assets, fiber to the node, that sort of thing. But right now, there's no real call for it. But we have in mind that there are some aspects of what exists in our other specs that we can pull out to create T-SPEC. X-SPEC is the one that will be released next, and we're planned for that to be available for comment at the end of this year. And I'll talk a little bit more about X-SPEC later, but essentially X-SPEC is it's an extra specification. So for people who are subscribing to any of the A-SPEC suite, this will be a complementary specification. And the plan how it came about is that we identified a number of assets that don't naturally fit within other specifications, so they become part of A-SPEC. So that's what you can expect. Is that a good joke, Kelly? Yes, the look says it all. Thank you. I'll stop while I'm ahead. Okay. So during each of our forums, we asked participants, when did they first start using A-SPEC? And as you can see, we've had participants using it as early as 2004, and as recently as this year. So we're really pleased of the spread. And interestingly enough, Kelly and I talked about this yesterday when we were creating this presentation, that 2020 through to 2022 was an interesting time, particularly in Victoria, COVID, lockdown. We actually saw, we first went online with these forums in 2020. So we also saw a larger uptake of the specs during that time. Now, there's also a couple of acknowledgements, a couple of other acknowledgements that I want to make, because there was a number of participants, one of which was Shane Sewell from Mill American, and he shared with us during the D-SPEC forum his experience at the time of being first to deliver in Victoria, circa 2004. And and I'm not sure if Ken Tolman is on, but if Ken Tolman is on, he was also there in the early days developing some software to enable the D-SPEC delivery. And then we had Trevor King, formerly from MNG in WA, briefly share with us in the following forum about his experience in WA when D-SPEC landed circa 2006, 2007. So we've been very fortunate to have people from the earlier days still strongly contributing as service providers. Our registrations are pretty consistent, and you can see it's, as always, our registrations peak for the three core specifications, D, O, and R, and we always get strong interest for the showcase. So, and we had a few more numbers register since we created this slide, but that's just an indicator of where the interest is. At the start of each of the forums, we ask people where do they come from, where are they attending from. So here's just a mashup of those locations. So no longer can we assume that they're logging in from their work premises, particularly Victoria. Just a little bit more about our attendees. We're always curious as to who attended, as in the kind of role that people have. Now, by no means is this exhaustive, but it gives us a good indication. Last year, I had a look at the results from last year, and last year we had almost 50% of the participants were from council, and then a large proportion from surveyors. And this year we've got a bigger proportion of people who nominated other. So and we'll explore that a bit further. But as you can see, large proportion of council officers and surveyors in the community. So really pleased about that. Over time, you often wonder, what level of maturity, what level of sophistication occurs in the industry. To us, it's about the level of knowledge that people have. And this slide that we prepared, you can see a comparison between 2025, which is the bar chart on the left, and 2024, which is in the paler color on the right. So it's so there is an increased number of what we call green. We could align it with green fields. It's pretty fresh. So 2024, there's a higher percentage of people who we may nominate as novices or lesser experience. And as you can see, the number of people who are now consider themselves to have expertise was in the order of 44% of the respondents. So we're really pleased about that. And the solid background, I think a lot of people undervalue just their level of knowledge and experience with this, but we're really keen to see the solid and the expertise areas increase. We're a bit late with getting this poll into the forums, and so this is really a snapshot across S and W specs only. But compared to last year, we're already seeing a shift in commitment to the 2023 versions, which is important because a comment came up during the forums as to why is 2019 still a requirement, a couple of years down the track from the release of 2023. So it was timely discussion, because now we're going to run a poll with the community on the impact of ceasing support for 2019 next year. So we'll start that communication process by the end of September. Communication has been a strong focus of the forums over the past few years, and in particular, advocating to promote and identify requirements up front through what we call the asset and asset data handover checklist, whether for subdivision developments or capital works projects. We consider it an important aspect to identify how this can support an existing process, such as the project management framework for capital works. So compared to last year again, the needle has shifted. However, we still have some way to go for this to become part of the code of practice. Once again, we invited a number of speakers from within the A-SPEC community, and we mixed it up between open discussions through to presentations. We're now factoring in to have this mix again next year. All up this year, we had 6 guests across the forums, and our polling reveals our speakers received an average rating of 4+ stars. So we want to acknowledge and thank all of our wonderful guest speakers and presenters for taking the time to prepare for our forums and for sharing their knowledge and experiences with us. I was particularly excited about this because this was my dabble into AI. And for people that were not at previous forums, what I outlined was that I used AI, a tool called Claude AI, and Claude was very helpful. I'm not very much into programming, so I went into this tool and I wanted to create a tool to create codes from a crowdsourcing perspective. So rather than waiting for Gissa to create a code or for George to create a code, we want to empower the community to be able to create codes. And so we developed this tool called the Code List Dashboard. Now it's currently in testing. We have it on our website. Zayu, one of our interns, and I are testing it. And again, this will be available by the end of September, and it will be available through your login. If you haven't got a login, don't hesitate to go onto the A-SPEC website and request one. I want to talk a little bit about capital works. This came up as one of the topics of conversation, as in data for capital works. So there's a couple of ways that we could have gone down this path, as in debate, do we need all that data? Or holistically look at what would be the process of identifying what data is needed. Now typically the kind of feedback I get from PMs is, why do we need the A-SPEC process for, say, resurfacing or resheeting, resealing, that sort of thing? Said, well, let's break it down. So I've created a few slides just to talk about this a little bit. So in this particular slide, I've differentiated between identifying what type of project there is. So it starts with the prep. The more thorough the prep work, the more efficient time-wise you can complete a project. And of course, time means money. Whether you're in asset owner land or you're in data provider land, time is time. So essentially what we're looking at is A-SPEC identifies a number of attributes according to the asset type, which you all know. So in our view, let's have a look at these two examples. Resurfacing, what do you need to do? Well, complete the checklist, because there could be a number of layers of data. You know, there may be some information on the surface, and there may be some information about the pavement. So you could do that kind of prep. More often than not, it's just the surface. And what it means is you update the attributes. So if the attributes have already been adopted by the organisation and incorporated into their asset management and GIS environments, then it's pretty straightforward. And the process is not dissimilar to what you're currently already doing. Versus a renewal or reconstruction where there's a new asset or an asset is realigned, then it's really critical to look at completing the checklist. And again, the more complete the prep, the clearer it is what the picture will be at the end of it. So in this particular instance, you need to provide a GIS ready file containing the location of the asset as per the layers within the different specs and their related attributes. So what this would look like is, here's a snapshot of what a checklist would look like, and I've provided a checklist of a project that we've worked on internally. So you can see on the right-hand side, here is the data that we received that we were to attribute with the A-SPEC components. And what was really useful was receiving the checklist. We were then able to look at the data that we were given to see if it reflected what was expected to be delivered. Now we know, here's the typical capital works process. In our experience, we've identified that rarely is there a budget allocation for data capture as part of a project. So we talked about how we strongly advocate that this is a consideration for every project. Of course, important to determine just what is needed, hence the prep. And when we start talking about extending the conversation to indicate the kind of interactions, particularly for governance and accountability, we also talked about the importance of these workflows. You know, and we've looked at it we adopt a swim lane approach with our clients, and our clients typically being the asset owners, where we look at a particular task. In this case, it was about roads and stormwater renewals and reconstructions. And we look at what are the tasks that are linked to the different business units. So they're not linked to a person, they're linked to a business unit. In the event that a person leaves, the responsibility is maintained within that business unit. And, you know, the areas that are circled are some of the key hold points that we look at. We also spoke about we continued the governance conversation by outlining some of the reporting that we observe as a result of audits carried out by auditors or auditors general across Australia and New Zealand. So these reports all have a strong focus on data and process to develop evidence-based decision-making for investment in infrastructure. Now, one of the things that I highlighted was that we saw this in Victoria. So the bottom left, that graph, talks about how the Auditor General's Office, when they started auditing councils around their assets, they started identifying not just found assets, but also ghost assets. So in this particular graph, it showed that in 2015, 24 of the councils they audited discovered that they had found $149 million worth of assets. And then in 2017, 2018, that had escalated to more councils and more assets. And, I briefly mentioned ghost assets. There's another graph that they created that identified that ghost assets are assets that may exist in the system, but don't actually exist. So the key thing is about certainty, about where did that asset come from, or where did that data about that asset come from that now exists in your asset register. So that was the snapshot. There was quite a lot of learnings to be had from there. Happy to answer any questions, but Gaby, are you on now?
I am indeed, George.
Fantastic.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Gaby. Looking forward, we had you initially as Common QGIS set up, but thanks for your message this morning that you've gone with the theme. So looking forward to seeing it. So over to you.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Come on. Presentation doesn't want to show. F5. Wonderful tech tip if I can't even do it. Get PowerPoint to work.
Come
on. Sorry.
All right, Gaby. We have a bit of time. Have you got your
presentation in front of me? I do.
No, have you got your camera off? Oh, here we go. Your journey with AI. I love it.
All I've done is I've now moved my presentation to my main screen because I can't get it to show.
That's all right.
There it is. Now it shows. Okay. All right. Now I was a bit hesitant about this, to be honest, because I know everybody else is playing with AI, and I don't know whether I can teach anything about it that other people can't do. But let's have a talk about it. So how it started for me was my daughter is a psychology, was studying psychology at the time, 2019, and she always came to me and said, "Dad, can you help me reduce the text? Because she's very wordy, and then she has to write a thing that's 3,000 words, and then she comes up with 4,500. And Dad, please, can you reduce the words?" And I'm like, when I say 4,500, that was actually the worst of the tasks that my daughter gave me. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. And you try your best and you get it right, but you get it down to 500 down, etc. And then somebody told me, well, why don't you try ChatGPT version 3? And I did, and it took no time. She read it through. She said, "How did you do that?" Because it was spot on. It kept everything that she needed to keep, but it was just under 3,000 words. So that was my introduction, and a happy one at that. And then I started explaining or playing around with this a little bit more. And initially it was just generating some odd text and do some data lookups and emails. And then I had a massive problem in Oracle. It was a fairly complex thing. And for one of my clients, I do spatial queries, which this particular query involved 3 different tables. It was different. I don't know if anybody knows Oracle, but any interact is 9 ways in which spatial entities can interact with one another. And I had to use 4 of those in those queries. It was, for me, it was complex, and I gave it to Oracle, and it sorted it out in absolutely no time. I copied the data in, and I was clever enough not to put in the actual table names and field names. And after I'd fixed all of that, it worked. And it worked first time I tried it, which was amazing for me. And then immediately I started throwing Excel issues at it, and all of that worked. And so I thought I'd quickly go through some of the things that I've used it and that I now kind of regularly use my AI for, as a search engine, often to get news, because it's actually better. If you come from Africa and you want to know something about Africa or things happening in Africa, the Aussie news doesn't normally cut it, neither does the American or European news. But here I get the news I need and I want. I've done some database designs. I regularly, if I have to do something new, I go there. I often do my designs myself, and then I say, "What do you think?" and I use it. And like I said earlier on, improving on the SQL. And here's an interesting one. I was looking for a person that I needed to contact in a professional manner, and I just didn't know in what company she works for. She's a hydrographer. She's one of the only registered hydrographers in South Africa, at a very high level. And I just couldn't find her contact, and I found it amazing that it was able to give me that contact very quickly. And then also, lately I do a lot of work in Africa, and very often we need to deploy alternative technologies that work, because we can't afford other technologies, and it actually helps me a lot. And it makes me aware of other technologies that's workable, as good as the mainstream things that we use, and cost half the price, a quarter of the price. And then document management. So I do use it for some document management as well. Now here's my tips. You must prepare what to ask up front. I sit down and I write out what I want to ask, and I make sure that I give enough detail, and sometimes I'll add an example. So I mean, that immediately comes back to, if it takes you more time to write out what you want to ask than actually doing the job yourself, then there's a cutoff there that you have to be careful for. But give it enough detail and give it examples. Now, because of the stuff that I do, which is often the same kind of thing, I've prepared starter documents, not just one, a few. One has got general information about me and my company. Another, stuff that I normally do. What is the kinds of stuff that I do? I work a lot with utilities, and I'll explain some of that in very general terms. And then at the start of every session where I need that particular document, I'll load that and I'll say, here's some background, now the question. That I found saves me a lot of time, because otherwise I often have to repeat myself. And you can say, yeah, but it keeps a history, it keeps a record of everything. But I found that not one of the engines actually go through all of your history and all of the stuff that you've told it before, and sometimes remembers. Sometimes it's something I spoke about yesterday that it doesn't remember. So I start my conversations with the starter documents, and I now have about 6 or 7 of them. That's very particular for particular tasks. So that's for me probably one of the most important things that I've learned. And then you have to start analyzing or analyze what the AI tells you, and you have to be very critical. I have to say, critical thinking is probably one of the weak points, I will say, of these AIs, and that's just my opinion, and we can have a longer conversation about that. But I find that it's very general. It gives me the answers that is the next expected thing, and I think I say a little bit more about that a little bit later on. It'll give me the answers that is expected, is the common, is the in the box thinking. It's not the out the box thinking answer. So I have to critically assess what it tells me. I've also found that it outright lies. It knows something, and then because of the way I put a question, it'll give me an answer, the answer it thinks I want to hear. And I can also talk about that a little bit. So critical thinking, really, really important. You have to think about what it comes back with. Some other things that I do. I play one engine off against another, and I tell the engines what I'm going to be doing. So I'll ask a question, I get the answer, and I take the same question I copied in the other one, and then I'll say to either of them, ChatGPT said this, or Grok said that, and do you agree? And I get them to sort of have a discussion. I have a discussion about what the other engine said, and very often I actually come up with a much better solution out of all of that. The other thing I think one should really consider is you have to understand, and I actually should have swapped points 2 and 3 around. So I'll talk about point 3 first. You have to understand the limitations of your session. Every session has got a certain amount of memory. There's server time allotted, and there's parameters that's based on whatever package you're using. And you have to understand those parameters, think about those parameters when you engage in a serious kind of chat. Don't let that chat go on too long, and rather start a new session or a new chat, because as the session runs out of memory, it still gives you answers, but sometimes I find that it's trying to fit something into as little space as possible, because it's got all this stuff in its memory, the history. Maybe it's the time that's running out in terms of the server time. Maybe the server is very, very busy. Things like that. I find that I have to consider keeping my chats short, and that way I get better results. That's for me. So now a few traps. I think we must always remember that these AIs are trained by the masses using existing documentation, and most of it's American. And so the context is very much not Australian, or in my case, not African or European, because I do work in Europe as well. It's very much American, and I have to remember that, and it sometimes is a bit frustrating. I also find that for me, it has no real, I don't ask real human type questions, because I don't think I've found it doesn't have much empathy or real, it's all machine. It's all, what is expected will come next. And it might have lots of psychology, but it's all, the standard way that the industry or broader thinking is thinking about stuff or expects the next step to be, because that's what it's all about. The large language models are about what is the logical next step, and it'll bring that to you. And I also found that it's not really creative. And in terms of that one, just a very quick story. I asked it for an alternative solution to I'm off grid. Some of you may know. And I had a particular problem, and I wanted to have an alternative solution. It couldn't come up with that solution. But when I turned my VPN on and I did the search from as if I'm in Mozambique, and then I got an answer. And so it's very much limited to that environment that I'm in. Okay, so where am I today? I use AI all the time. I use it for a lot of things, and it has actually made a big difference in my life. I've also wasted a huge amount of time going down rabbit holes that I wouldn't want to, especially when it comes to coding, SQL. I do complex stuff sometimes, and sometimes some things don't work, and and you ask it, and the code that it produces doesn't work, and then you have to analyze its code, and then you discover that this is there's a little spelling mistakes. I mean, I can't believe it now, and I'll tell it, oh, you've made a spelling mistake. No, sorry, I've made a mistake, and I find that bizarre that kind of thing happens. But it's also that I feel it overcomplicates things, and so you have to be careful that you don't waste time chasing something, and that's where the critical thinking that I talked about earlier come in. I also have to do the constant training about my environment and the things that the reasons I'm asking questions. I have to give it background information. I do that in these documents, and I update my documents as I go, so that I always refer to that document, and I know that that's being considered in the question. I've had some really spectacular wins. I had a critical security issue that I needed to deal with. I had no clue about that, and asked, and it sorted it out for me. So I really rely on it quite heavily. But like I said, you've got to think about what you're doing. So what do I use? I have paid accounts for Grok Code Fast and ChatGPT Pro. I also use Perplexity and Gemini. Gemini, I actually have a paid version for that, but it's not one that I use as much as I use ChatGPT Pro or Grok. I just thought I'd put that out so that people know. And the last thing I want to say is, what will I try next? I've not tried graphics. I don't know, maybe other people have tried graphics or generating graphics. You can see from the slideshow, there's no fancy ChatGPT graphics in here. But that's some stuff that I want to do to enhance my documentation, make it look better. I want to try and get into that. I have a serious coding project that I want to start, but to do that, I'm going to have to use an agent. And for those of you who don't know what an agent is actually like a robot. And you get the robot, you say, here's the stuff that I want you to do, and it goes and it will do a multiple of tasks for you. It's not just here's a question and answer the question. Okay, and that's it. That's all from me. Over to you, George, or any questions, comments?
Thanks, Gaby. That was really great, and I I know from I experienced all of those things that you've talked about doing the prep, setting the scene. In fact, I also experienced when I was developing the code list dashboard that it would actually change the structure of it without me asking for it. And so if you ever want to experience being acknowledged for being right, tell an AI that it did it incorrectly, and it'll come back, oh yes, you're absolutely right. So it's it was quite an interesting experience.
Yeah, I had earlier this week on Monday. I had a thing. I'm doing some dynamic SQL out of SQLite and out of Oracle, and so there's two engines, and they work slightly differently. And I got it it gave me the answer for both of them, but they had the same kind of basic structure. And I had to point out, but SQLite is different from Oracle in terms of, the way that we use a SQL and this and that, and, had to explain all of that. And at the end, I got a very good compliment. Oh, that's very good. And you've done your research. So pat on the back.
I know a bit of false affirmation goes a long way.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I really loved your insights. I've also been using it for cutting down my words, because apparently I do carry on a little bit, Gaby, with some of the things that I write and say, but I found it really, really great to be succinct about things. In fact, we threw in our code list spreadsheet that we have and said, how can we restructure this to simplify it? So it came back with some suggestions about what to remove and how to structure it. So the next time we put up the code list spreadsheet, it's going to have a different structure to it. So really useful for doing things at rapid pace. Yeah. So look, Gaby, your prep in that was excellent. Thank you very much. I know that we're going to see presentations that take AI to the next level, and I'm about to have a conversation with Fergal about his observations and how he and his company got started. But it was a great way to intro the next two presentations. We've probably got time for one question. If anybody has a question that they want to put into the chat, or take yourself off mute.
No question. I just thought it was a really good presentation. Thanks for that, Gaby. It's great.
You're welcome. Thanks, Kelly.
Okay. Now, for those of you, you won't know, but Gaby will be jumping off this session afterwards. He's got some other commitments, so we're very privileged to have Gaby spend the time to do this presentation. And thanks again, and your contributions to our tech tips are fantastic. Thank you, Gaby.
Thank you, George. Thanks, everyone. I am going to jump off now. Enjoy the rest of your session.
Cool. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Gaby.
And look, I've got the slide up to rate the technical insights about AI. So we invite you to complete that. So far, we've had one person do a rating. I'd love to have some more to get a sense of how this came across for you. So I'll give you 30 seconds, and then we'll get on to progressing our conversation with Fergal. Okay, fantastic. So we now have, as you can see on the screen, 16 of the 25 people who have logged into the Menti have voted, and yeah, look, it's terrific feedback, and if Gaby hasn't gone just yet, I think you'll be really pleased, because as he said, he was uncertain about how this would come across. But the poll is still open, so please jump on if you get a chance. Okay. Right. So Fergal.
Morning, George.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm great. And look, thank you for agreeing to this. The Fireside chats have been received pretty well this year. We started them last year just to get a sense, and it provides an opportunity for people to listen to the practitioners, real world experiences, rather than just another PowerPoint presentation that sometimes can occur. So welcome. So this is all about you and AI. We've known each other for a few years now, but for people who don't know you, can you just tell us a little bit about Fergal, and how is it that you ended up in this lovely country and this beautiful Melbourne weather?
Yeah, well, it's pretty good weather when you consider where I'm come from, George. I've been here well over 20 years now. Followed my wife down to the Antipodes 20 years ago, and here I am 20 years later. Very much Melbourne is my home, maybe my second home. And I'm the co-founder and the CRO at Symphony 3, which is a digital enablement business. So we've been around since 2011, helping local governments get on the digital enablement journey, I guess, and digital transformation journey. We've had quite a growth spurt over the last 2 years in particular, and that's seen us double down, I guess, on the work we do with integration, and also enter into the AI sphere. So I was very interested to hear what Gaby had to say earlier on. I think what Gaby demonstrated was, how you can use some of these Gen AI tools, off-the-shelf Gen AI tools. I guess where we play is in the enterprise AI space. And I guess you'll hear from Sarah-Jayne later, who'll explain this stuff better than me. But if we think about AI, I think there's general AI, which is very broad, which includes things such as machine learning. And then what we've kind of arrived at now is Gen AI, which is what people will know as ChatGPT, Claude, etc. The next evolution of that is what we call kind of Gen AI with RAG, which is where you train it on your own data in your own environment. So we're playing a lot there. I'll talk a bit about that in a second. We're starting to see the evolution now to Gen AI agents. So Gen AI agents will do distinct tasks, or they'll set off a series of tasks to achieve something. And, that may all happen in the background. And I think increasingly we're going to start to see agents sitting inside software packages and on top of software packages. So we've got it in our Smart Glue product, for example. And then the next evolution of that is a protocol called MCP, which should be really of interest to your listeners, who are, my understanding is GIS officers who tend to understand data pretty well. The way to understand MCP is a protocol, and it allows you to pull data from multiple systems and structured data. So it's the USB-C of AI. It allows you to pull your data from anywhere. So, been able to pull information from a CRM and information from unstructured data such as PDFs, and maybe from an asset system, and combine all that data to deliver insights. That's where I think there's going to be real opportunity for councils in particular, as much as anybody else. So sorry, that's a bit of a diatribe for one question. I'll shut up now.
It's great. You know, as Gaby said, it's very easy to go down a rabbit hole, and you know, I've had that experience as well. Now, given that we're talking Gen AI agents and MCP, and we have a very conservative, security conscious sector, what are some of the pitfalls for, you know, say a council officer who wants to start exploring AI? What are you seeing through your client base? There's some of those issues they have to tackle.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, you know, when social media came out and all the councils were, a lot of councils were trying to stop use of YouTube and Facebook, et cetera. You're not going to stop it. Pretty sure most people online will have used some of these tools. So it's really about putting the governance in place as a starting point. And I'll make some, we've some AI resources, free resources that I'll throw them into the chat after this. So starting with a policy, and then trialing. So, you know, we kind of say, think big, start small, but act now. One of the things we've been busy doing over the last 12 months or 8 months, we're an AWS partner. So obviously all the big boys are playing in this space. You've got Microsoft, you've got AWS, you've got Google, you've got Grok with Elon Musk, etc. So we use a lot of the AWS tools. We've been funded by them to run 8 POCs with councils. So councils, a lot of them are rural councils, and they're pretty risk averse. So what we've done is we've picked what we think are use cases that are risk free, and I'll give you a couple of examples in a second, that are easy to achieve, and some are easier than others to achieve, and that can be used as learning environments for councils. So we just, Sarah-Jayne later on will show you a heritage agent that we've developed for Bendigo City Council. What that does is, you know, when people want to know if there's a heritage overlay on their property, they've got to go into, I don't know, they have 15 or 20 heritage documents that are hundreds of pages long, and they've got to troll through that to get some answers. And the people in council have to do that, or council officers have to do that. We've put that into a safe enterprise version of AI using a tool called Bedrock, and we've trained it. We've put guardrails around it. Sarah-Jayne has been hands-on with this. We've done kind of prompt engineering in there to make sure that, you know, it doesn't go off kilter. And it's a very simple use case. You can say, is there an overlay on my house? It looks at those documents. It doesn't go beyond those documents, and it returns an answer. Yeah. Why do we use that? Number one, it's a good use case. It'll save people time straight off the bat. You know, we're making it available to councils for $3,000 per annum. So it's, you know, it's going to deliver return on investment very quickly. It's using data that's publicly available anyway, so that, yeah, the risk is minimal. And they can learn and get started.
Fantastic. I'm sure our next speaker, James Mant, would be interested in that, because he'll be talking specifically about AI in the planning realm. So yeah, so
that's one example, George. You know, there's
yeah.
I think we went around to councils and we ran workshops, and we have over 100 use cases of where AI can be used that we've gathered from council officers. The other one we're working on at the moment is an agent to look at parking infringements. And when people kind of question the parking infringement, how can we streamline that process?
Good. I might have a real case study for you. Yes. So, so you mentioned about digital transformation that your company focuses strongly on that. So how has AI impacted it, benefited it, retarded it? How has AI been incorporated in that space?
Well, look, I think it's all digital transformation. The way as I said at the outset, we tend to think big but start small. So pick off chunks. There's absolutely no doubt AI is going to impact every organization. It's one of the tools that's available for to help you with your digital transformation, but it's not the only one. So data is going to be hugely important in here. Integration of data and integration is continually going to be important. So that's still our core business. Councils have 40 odd systems. Most of them don't talk to each other. So our bread and butter is helping councils connect the systems. If you're going to present data to AI out of your systems, you're going to have to integrate your systems. You're going to have to clean your data, and that hasn't necessarily changed. AI is just another tool on top of it. Hugely powerful tool, but people process technology. That's one of the learnings for us, and one of the learnings I think with the councils we work through these POCs with, and other councils we're doing advisory work with. It still needs a project plan. It still needs change management. It's a technology like any other.
Yeah, very, very good. That's been my experience as well. I mentioned briefly that we had a bit of a dabble with a spreadsheet that we wanted to tidy up. I went further and said, is there any particular trends or classification system that we could incorporate? And so, within 30 seconds, I had a response to that. And then it asked me, would you like a migration plan? So I said yes. Yeah. And it came up with a fairly comprehensive migration plan and anticipated timelines and what needed to be dealt with when. And I thought, that would take a significant amount of experience to come up with that kind of plan. And here it was at my fingertips. It was then a matter of whether it was relevant to my case or not. So
I think if you think of councils, that's a good example. If you think of the amount of data that councils are sitting on, the real power of this is, I think what you've talked around is great with the general Gen AI, but training it on your own data is where there's going to be massive insights. The other thing to think about here is that, there's two aspects to it. There's structured data and there's unstructured data. A lot of us are doing stuff with unstructured data, documents and things like that. That will improve as well as we start, running AI over video and audio and things like that. And then the structured data, taking things out of databases and combining that with unstructured is going to be hugely, hugely powerful.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And Gaby mentioned he hasn't dabbled with the creating any visual products yet, but I note that Canva has an AI capability there. So I'll be having a play with that and talking to Kelly about how we can zhuzh up some of our presentation material.
Other thing, George, I think that we've learned is everybody's on the journey. So all the councils, all the businesses are on the journey together. One thing that we've created is a learning forum, which we've got a mascot called Beatrix, is our little company mascot. So we've called our learning environment the AI pollinator, where it's all about pollinating AI ideas and learnings into councils, and that's been very, very successful. So we run webinars, we run get-togethers. We did an AI innovation lounge at the LG Pro conference in May, where people could come and just ask questions about AI and share their experiences on AI. So that's free for people to attend. We've got one tomorrow. people are more than welcome to come along with. And we bring in, like you do, George, we bring in guest speakers. We've got somebody, I think, from Mornington Peninsula tomorrow speaking. So nobody has all the answers.
No, and Bendigo, I noticed. So if you want to, feel free to put that into the chat for people who want to attend. I did check out.
I think you're attending, are you?
I think I am. So
anyway, everyone's welcome. I'd like people to come and share their experiences. That's the link there. I've just thrown it in. Yeah, I should give you the access to the free resources we have as well. If people are starting their journey, we've put together things like AI policy templates that people can use, reuse, or use them to get themselves started.
Yeah. Your background is in communications, and I know in the past that some of the work that you've done with councils has been around communicating with the residents and getting feedback from them. Have you incorporated AI into assessing the responses? And
one of our POCs is looking at that. So things like sentiment analysis. It's early days, and again, the data, gathering the data is the challenge. But yes, I think, look, we communicate, probably talk about customer experience. So we'll do everything from front end websites. Bendigo, as you mentioned, they're a client of ours. We run their corporate website. Those interfaces are going to change. I think we're going to get to the stage where some people will just speak to the agent. They won't be going. We're seeing it already. People aren't going to websites. They're just chatting in something and putting something into ChatGPT. So I think you're going to start seeing a real change in the interfaces that people interface with organizations. It'll probably be something like Siri, where you say, hey Bendigo, tell me when I need to put my bin out.
Yes, go ahead.
So how that will evolve. You might have an AI agent on one side of your screen or on your phone, and you might have a website on the other. It's evolving, and we're talking to Bendigo about it at the moment, but nothing live on their website yet.
Cool, that's really great. So for the new kid on the block, where do they start?
You talking about a council, or you talking about an individual?
Well, let's say an individual to start with.
I think go back to what Gaby has looked at. Get yourself some of these tools and start thinking. AI is not going to replace your job. The cliche here now is AI won't replace your job, but somebody who can use AI might well, because it can make people so much more effective and powerful and productive. So, understand what tasks you undertake in your role, and see how that can be augmented and speeded up by AI. Play around with the different tools. Different tools are better at different tasks, and even in the enterprise AI work that we do, we use our integration skill set to plug and play different LLMs based on the task at hand. So you can use something like AWS's Nova LLM. If you've got a simple task, it'll do it quite well. If you need something more powerful, you might want Claude Sonnet. But the reality is that you're going to be using there's different Gen AI tools that are going to be better at different tasks. So I don't think that there's going to be one solution to solve all of them. So if you're a council getting started, think of the problems, start with the customer. How can we use these tools to deliver a better outcome to the community, and work backwards from there.
Fantastic. It's I've been using Claude Sonnet, and I actually put in a a query to compare two different products and say, so you're both AI tools, what do you do? And that was an interesting summary to come up. So, yeah, that's really great. Fergal, there's a question from John Cleverton in the chat. He's got another event. He would have loved to participate in your event tomorrow, because Mornington's is where he lives. But is that going to be recorded, that session?
Yeah, John. Either shoot me an email and we'll get a copy to you, or just if you register for the webinar, I'm pretty sure you'll be on the list then, and a recording should go out after the event to people who've missed it with a copy.
Yeah.
So yeah,
okay. I'll register for it then, because they've actually got some of the best online maps for local government assets in Victoria, if you look at their website.
Yeah, and they're doing some interesting things with the MyLot planning, which is probably a competitor to your next speaker. But I think there's going to be a whole lot of tools there. They've got an emerging tech guy, Justin, who's going to speak. So they've made a role available for somebody to look at AI. So yeah, more than happy for you to register, and we'll flick you on a recording, John.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah. Okay, so Fergal, our time's up as always. I enjoy chatting with you. You're
Thank you, George.
a font of knowledge, Fergal. Love it. So appreciate it. Fergal, are you going to be sticking around, or you've
I'll be listening in. I'll be doing bits and pieces,
okay.
But I'm around. I'll be listening to Sarah-Jayne as well. I'm happy to hop on if there's questions and assist her.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you very much, and appreciate your candidness with what you've shared with us.
No, thank you, George, and thank you for the opportunity, and thanks everyone for listening. Welcome.
So I've just flicked over to start the Menti. So whilst that's happening in the background, well, it says a fireside chat. So yes, we pretty much got there, Fergal. We did have a bit of a fireside chat. So next up, whilst people are taking some time to put in their rating for the fireside chat, next up we have James Mant, who's the CEO from Spero AI, and I'm going to declare my interest in this. I'm actually on the board of Spero AI, so I'm pretty keen to see what you have to present to our community, James. If you are, I'm assuming that you're on. There you are.
Can you see me?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there you are. Yes, I can see you now.
Hi, George.
Yes. So you're a bit under the weather earlier in the week, so hopefully you're better now.
Yes. No, I'm still getting over flu, so hopefully my brain will be functioning okay to get me through the presentation today. But please give me a little bit of leeway on that.
I'm sure we can do that. We have the power. So
thank you,
James. Just before James starts, this Menti will be on in the background for people who haven't rated the fireside chat yet. Please don't hesitate to do so. But James, over to you.
No worries. I'll share my screen. Shall I share my screen now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excuse me. Right. Second. Okay. So I'm going to cough a bit. Sorry. I do apologize in advance. So today I really wanted to talk about obviously Spero AI, and thanks for your introduction, George. I thought what I'd like to talk about is kind of just talk the process that I'm calling it process to purpose, and that will become clear as I'm going through the presentation. But it's my story, I guess, about how I'm kind of wanting to try and fix planning, and it's quite a big ambition because there's a lot of issues, but you know, it's really important because I think we need to be able to focus on places and delivery and getting the process into a much better spot, not paperwork, basically. So So there you go. I've got an AI picture of a planner. That's me when I was in my first job. Lots of paperwork and lots of kind of process. So I guess I want to tell you about where I started. So I'm a planner. I've had about 20 years experience. I worked in the UK, in Ireland, and in Melbourne, and I've worked for the last 17 years, up until last year, I was working in state government. And I worked in lots of different areas of government during that time. And it really was quite eye-opening. My first job was in I guess what you would call a more statutory role, which, you know, dealing with things like planning scheme amendments and planning permits for state government. And one of the things that I think back on during that time was how terrible the process was, and how really there was so much focus on getting the right paperwork, you know, in place, checking things, and all of the sort of menial tasks that really we weren't sort of focusing that much on the outcome. And I have to say, I found myself really wondering whether it was a career for me, and I sort of questioned it, and I honestly was very close to leaving the profession. So, you know, I don't think that that's an unusual experience even now today with planners. You know, it can be quite a thankless task being a planner. And, you know, you might come out of university and go into a council and you end up kind of doing very, very kind of menial, small scale planning permits, for example, and getting really bogged down in the day-to-day, and you're not really being able to use your skills as a planner. And, you know, we've kind of become, the system has become the beast, and the outcomes, and, you know, is secondary. So that was sort of my I guess early career, and it really stuck with me. Luckily, I was able to move into another area of government, and it really reignited my passion for planning. And it was really mostly all about thinking about outcomes. And those two projects that I think really resonated with me, and I really enjoyed, were the 20-minute neighbourhoods and future homes. And so I led those two projects for government. And so 20-minute neighbourhoods really is about walkable neighbourhoods where you've got access to your daily needs within a short return walk from home, and, you know, that they're safe, they're well designed, they're you know, they have a range of services that provide for you. And it's really about having great local centres that you can access, which really came to the fore during COVID, because a lot of people were you know, obviously forced to stay within their neighbourhood. So it really shone a light on what you do or don't have access to. And it's really a story of two cities in terms of, you know, inner Melbourne's great, but outer Melbourne is not so great. And Future Homes, that's one of the designs there. Future Homes was a project that really I really loved, because it was about sort of flipping the whole process around, and it was about thinking at the start, well, what outcomes do we want? So future homes are really about well-designed, well-ventilated, spacious, family-orientated apartments that integrate well into neighbourhoods. They're 3-storey. They have space for deep root trees, and they're, you know, the design is the highest priority. And what the process was, which I think is really interesting, was the government said you can buy these designs. I think it was, you know, $100 or something, very, very discounted. And if you follow the design, then essentially you get an approval very, very quickly. So it's flipped the script a little bit in terms of the process. And I thought that was a really interesting way and kind of a clever way to get good outcomes and actually think very differently about the system. So again, it made me think about, what do we need to do to get better outcomes in the planning system? So what's happening now is we've got, you know, in terms of what's happening in councils for the planning permit process, is we've got systemic friction. So we've got just basic issues around duplication, unclear requirements. So applicants, they don't really know where to start or what to do. It's hard to get an answer. It's hard to understand what process you've got to go through. The timelines are unpredictable. You don't know what's happening. You don't know where your permit is at, what's going on with it. And then on the flip side of that, you know, you've got the issue around judgment as well, judgment being squeezed out. I think morale is down in the profession. We've got a planner shortage as well. So that's another problem. So, you know, using planners more efficiently is also really important. And of course, communities and developers have to wait. Applicants have to wait. So, and often not knowing what's happening or where things are at. So I think what I realized is it's a systemic issue. It's not a quick fix here and there with bits and pieces. It's the whole process. You have to fix the journey, not just one step of that journey. We have to fix each part of it. So, you know, in terms of a permit, actually, I'll go to the next slide. Oh, actually, go back. Yeah, so as I said, we have to fix the journey. So, you know, in terms of a permit, that's like right from the point at which the applicant is thinking about an idea of what to do to the point where that project is built, and all the steps along the way, and there's multiple steps. So the vision that I had was really wanting to give planners back time so that we can focus on the things that matter. So that's really important, and it's partly because I'm a planner myself. I think it's really important that we use people's time much more efficiently, but also more effectively. So that's important. But restoring the purpose to planning, it's not just about pushing pieces of paper around. It's actually about really deeply thinking about some of the issues we've got to deal with and how we do that, and how we work collaboratively with applicants and developers and others to you know, move things through the system. It's become very disconnected and I suppose what would you say, you know, things that end up in VCAT and everyone's arguing. So you know, you want a much more collaborative approach. And of course, we need to speed up the process. We all know that it's taking too long, and we need to deliver housing. As you probably would have heard, we had all the productivity summit last week, federal government, and you know, it's just the talk of the town at the moment around process, cutting red tape, and reform. And so, you know, it's important that we do things to address that. And so I suppose one of the things that I think is important is it's developed for us. It's about being developed by people who know the system and know the problems. And I know Fergal just mentioned in at the end there around starting with the problem, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're looking at the problem first and working with councils on that. The other important point is we want it to be sovereign and secure, which is extremely important for councils. And I know through talking to a lot of councils out there and other organisations, where information is secured, how secure it is, where the fences are built to control information is really important. And the other thing I want to mention is just that we want to be integrated to. It will be able to be integrated with existing systems, so not creating a new one that has to replace everything else, and to do it in a modular way. So you know, if you've got a particular issue in a particular part of the process, you can just use that to. As I mentioned, it's end to end. I won't spend too long on this, so we can give enough time for some questions at the end. But really, it's as I mentioned, it's about inquiry to at the end compliance. So lodgement, assessment, referrals, decision, compliance. Some of the modules that we've developed already are addressing things like inquiries. So a common thing that comes up in councils is inquiries take a huge amount of time. Excuse me. And, you know, often if people can get the answer easily somewhere else, then they actually don't need to necessarily call. So what are the tools that we can use to help with inquiries and to reduce the time that it takes for councils to deal with those? Importantly, another one we're looking at is guided lodgement. So not just giving people information. It's actually about helping someone or people get through a process, which at the moment is extremely complicated. So how do you get into the system and get your application guided through so that you make sure that it's quality checked and we can complete the application for you, and we know that it's going to be in the right format as well for council. The amount of back and forth with councils for further information based on things not being in the right format is currently quite insane. So we've got to really reduce that, and so guided lodgement is a way of doing that. Assessment Copilot, well, this is one for planners themselves. So bringing all the information into one spot, consolidating all the controls, structuring the assessments, drafting conditions, inputting all the factual information, one spot for everything rather than all over the place. So, you know, really just making that assessment part a lot quicker. Referrals is one that comes up a lot as well. There's a lot to do there, to put it mildly, but one of the things that we have been doing is talking to some referral agencies, and a lot of the time it's exactly the same issues around information being right. So you got to make sure that what you're giving the referral agency is the right information in the right format. So that helps them getting the responses out and quicker. Tracking, records, and compliance. Tracking is one that comes up a lot. Obviously, if you're applying for a permit and you put your permit in, you know, at the moment it's average of 160 days for a permit in Victoria. Often you don't know what's happening on that whole time, you know. So you might try and call and you might not get any answers, you know, because the planner's busy trying to do the permit, and so actual just basic tracking. Where is your permit at? Who is it with? How long has it been with that person or agency? What's the next step? Those are really important things as well. That's not just for applicants, but also for the planner themselves, because it can get quite complicated sometimes when you're dealing with lots of applications. records, so keeping things like all in one spot, and compliance. At the end of the process, I was astounded that I found out that subdivision application, like reasonably sized subdivision applications, after your permit has been approved, often would have between 100 and 150 conditions. So you've gone through your whole permit process only to find you've got 150 more things to do. It's a huge issue. So actually, even just simply keeping on top of what's going on with those is quite difficult. And as I mentioned earlier as well about making sure that we can integrate with existing systems. So I'll wrap up quite quickly now, but what it means, what the near future and how do we start? So for councils, it means fewer requests for further information, shorter timeframes, clearer metrics, and hopefully happier planners as well. For developers or applicants, it's really about predictability. So certainty and predictability is the #1 thing that comes up, not even time. So if you can get certainty and predictability for the development industry or applicants, that's the main thing. Obviously, time is important, but that's the highest priority. Fewer surprises and lower holding costs. We found out that, you know, if you've got a $10 million project and that's delayed a year, that's $1 million that you're of cost for holding costs. So near future, safety is going to be the key. As I said previously, trusted and safely delivered. We want better drafts, learned consistency, and importantly, human sign-off. I think Fergal mentioned this around, not being replaced. Jobs not being replaced but your job being different, and the human element is going to be really, really important around sign-off and human in the loop. So what we are doing, our process is discovery. So what are the problems that you have? What's your organization's problems? What are your pain points? Then we focus on those pain points and pilot that with those modules that I talked about, and then following that, it's integrated and can be scaled. So I think and George, you can see George in there. What's great about us at Spero, I think, is we've got such an experienced team. We've got passionate planners, we've got tech experts, we've got commercial experts. We've got, several people who used to be in state government. So Jane Homewood was previously an exec director in the Department of Transport and Planning, and she led the development facilitation work. Got Karis Evans, who led the digital twin for state government. And we've got Andrew Greer as well, who led planning and building for state government. And of course, the legendary George as well. So we've got, amazing group of people with a lot of experience. Even though we're a startup, we've got a lot of experience. So I think that's proving to be really, really helpful, and having a great brains trust around the table. So some of my details there. Hope that was coherent, even though I've got flu. I'm happy to answer some questions.
Thank you, James. That was wonderful. Thank you for the kind words. You say all the right things. Yes. So whilst I'm just going to take over the screen for a moment so that we can get on to rating your session. So for those of you, please jump onto Menti can you use either the QR code or the go into menti.com on your browser and use that particular code. So James, obviously this is a very strong passion of yours and desire to minimize the impacts on planners, because planners are really copping it at the moment.
Yep.
Yes, and there's I see quite a big transient population of planners going from council to council, and some even stepping out of the industry.
Yeah.
So
yes. No, that's actually, I guess part of the. I didn't mention, but I'm actually on the Planning Institute committee in Victoria, and so I hear a lot from the planners out there about their day-to-day and the frustrations, and it's a hard job if you think about it. It's pretty thankless. So if we can make the job a bit smoother and for people to actually focus on things that they care about, then I think as a profession, it's going to be good for the profession, and we're going to get quality people staying, retaining those experienced planners, like you say, George. We're seeing people leave the profession, so you want to retain those people that have got the experience, and so it's definitely part of what we're doing is about trying to ensure that the planners out there are happy in their jobs as well.
Yes. So thanks again, James. Thank you very much, and thank you for weathering the flu storm that you're dealing with at the moment.
No problems.
You are sounding much better than you were the other day. So
yeah,
much
thanks.
appreciated. Yes. So look, thank you for that. Now, Sarah-Jayne, thank you for your patience, and looking forward to seeing what you have to present for us. So over to you. And look, you may want to start just like a very brief introduction of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, George. Yep, so you should be able to see my screen. So, hi everyone, my name is Sarah-Jayne and I'm a software engineer at Symphony 3. As you can tell, I'm from Ireland. I came to Australia last August and I've been working for Symphony 3 since December. So today I'm going to share and demonstrate some of the exciting AI use cases that have emerged from our journey with local councils. Think big, start small, start now. This is one of the key lessons that we've learned when councils are choosing their AI use case. Thinking big can help to set a clear vision. Starting small can help to keep things practical and low risk. And starting now, even with small steps, can open the door to some real outcomes. So I'll not spend too much time on the slide. I think Fergal has covered most of this. So Symphony 3, we help councils to integrate digital tools into their core systems. Our cloud-based platform now supports over 55 integrations and 30 clients. We began this AI journey around a year ago. We started by doing some workshops in collaboration with LG Pro. And from there, we were able to partner with Amazon Web Services, AWS, to deliver fully funded AI proof of concepts to 8 councils across Australia. So you can see along the bottom, these are some of the councils that took part in those funded use cases. And these are the 8 use cases that they each decided to focus on. What's really important to see here is, and good to see here, is that no 2 use cases are the same, which goes to show how much potential there is for AI within the sector. Some councils decided to focus on policy and procedure reviews, whilst another council decided to focus on a training chatbot, which would help staff understand how to use their council systems. And although each of these use cases are different, a use case that works well in one council can more than likely be adopted by other councils also. So they're very repeatable use cases. So each of these use cases will fall under a different type of AI. AI is evolving really quickly, and what was new yesterday is old today. And it's really important when you choose that use case to understand each of the different categories to see where your use case might fit in. So the first type of AI, you can kind of compare AI to different modes of transport. So you can compare Gen AI to like walking. So walking, it's quick and it's simple. And with Gen AI, you can quickly generate generic content very fast. RAG, on the other hand, retrieval augmented generation, it's like driving a car. So when you drive a car, you have different resources. So you might have your GPS, which will help you to go faster and further. With RAG as well, councils can use their own council data, and they can use this to gain more accurate answers from the AI. Next, we would have AI agents, and you can think of these as a plane. So a plane can complete more complex journeys. And we'll look at a use case later for the parking infringement and how this would fit in under an AI agent. And finally, we have MCP, which is Model Context Protocol. And you can kind of think of this as a space station. So it can coordinate lots of different things to work together. So let's take a deeper look into Gen AI first. You can think of Gen AI as a creative assistant. So you might go on to the likes of ChatGPT or Claude. You might ask a question. When you ask that question, it goes to an LLM. So an LLM is a large language model. And I like to think of Gen AI kind of like a parrot. So you can teach a parrot to recite a poem or answer a different question. And it does this based on patterns that it's previously learnt before. But does a parrot really know what it's saying? It's really just putting words together that it thinks that should go there together. So this is really useful for replying quickly to stuff or generating new content. So if we have a look at an example here of this, so I could ask ChatGPT, write me a poem about Symphony 3. And if you read this poem, what ChatGPT thinks I'm talking about is not our company, but it thinks it's talking about music. So it's very generic and doesn't know anything about us. Next, if we look at retrieval augmented generation, we can think of this as a well-informed assistant. So this time you'll notice on the diagram that there's more steps involved in this. So on the right-hand side, you can see that we have council website, SharePoint, and Cloudflare. And what this does is using Symphony 3 Smartly, which is an integration tool, it will securely pull all of the data out of there and it will put it into a factor store where all of this data is stored. What that means then is whenever you ask the ChatGPT a question about your data, it will then go to the LLM and it will have more context on the data. So that means that the response that you get is better than what you would get with just the generic generative AI. And one of the use cases that fits under this type of AI is the heritage planning chatbot. And I'll demonstrate our Beatrix AI heritage assistant in just a second. So if we just have a look again at the previous poem that I'd asked it to write a poem about Symphony 3. Now I have supplied, in the prompt, I supplied Symphony 3 website. So now it has more data about who Symphony 3 are. And you can see now that the poem that it's generated, it knows that Symphony 3 is in Melbourne. It knows about our Smartly product. And it knows that we're based in the Docklands in Melbourne. So it knows more about us, and the answer is more contextualized to our company. So now I'm going to demonstrate one of our use cases. So this is for the city of Greater Bendigo. And the problem is that they get a lot of queries in from residents about maybe about a heritage overlay. And the documents that they have are really long, and some of them are very old and scanned in documents, and it's really hard to find the information quickly that they need. So that's where AI can assist them. It can search through the information very quickly and can answer those questions within seconds. So if I just play this video, here you can see all of the documents, all of the heritage documents that we can ask a query on. If we go into one of the documents, we can see here that this is 617 pages and it's very text heavy. So we can go into the chat function and we can ask a question. So we're asking here, does Baxter Street fall under heritage overlay? This might be a common question that staff at Bendigo might be asked. So here we can see that if it does fall under the heritage overlay, the answer also provides the year, the page number, and which document you can find that information in. We can then go and ask it to write an email to send to the residents, so it will include all of that information that it previously gave us. And this is great to quickly generate that email. And also another capability of this is translating into different languages, which is really important for any councils that are very multicultural. So this can support multiple languages. So if we look at the next type of AI, the AI agent, you can think of this as a smart assistant. And here we have an example. So say you're working really hard, you want to book a holiday every 6 months. So what's important about AI agents is that you don't need an interface. So you don't need to have a chat agent. You don't need to maybe write a prompt into it. This might be triggered by something else and it will go off in the background and you might not even know that this is happening. So here the trigger is every 6 months, so it's the time. And in AI agents, they will have multiple tools. So for example, every 6 months, this AI agent will go off and it will book a flight. So it might look at Jetstar website and decide which flight's the cheapest or the best time. It then could go and book a hotel. So it might compare hotels from hotels.com or booking.com and decide which one it should choose. And finally, you need to know what dates you're actually going on your holidays. And you might want it to put it into your Google Calendar. So it can go off and put it automatically into your Google Calendar. So this really saves some time. It automates those processes and it acts on your behalf. So which use case falls under this type of AI? Well, it would be the AI parking infringement. So someone in council, they've parked it within the council and they've got a fine. So they go onto the council's website. They might fill out a parking infringement form. This will automatically trigger an AI agent, which will have all of these multiple tools. So it might go and it will review those details that the person has filled out in the form. It'll extract all of that information. Then it will go to the official parking systems that you have. So that could be maybe like Tech One or any other systems that you use. And it will gather all of the information that it has about that parking infringement from there. Then it might take all of that evidence that it's gathered and it will decide on an outcome whether the parking fine should be cancelled or whether it should still stand. And finally, we might want to email all of the staff in the parking infringement department to review what the outcome is and review that it's accurate before they send it out to the person who has submitted the form. So that's a really good use case for AI agents. Staff don't need to do anything. It will automatically be triggered when someone fills out the form. So the last type of AI that I'll talk about is model context protocol. And as Fergal already talked about it earlier, you can think of this as the USB-C of AI. So not very many years ago, we all would have had a drawer in our house with lots of different cables. But now we have the standard USB-C, which is great because you can plug it into anything and it works. This is the same what MCP does. So it's a one standard connection for all AI. And that means that it can share memory, tools, and different goals. So if we have a look at this diagram, so we can have multiple MCP servers. They can talk to any chat agent, whether that's Claude, Beatrix AI, or another custom chat agent. And it might talk to different APIs. So we could talk to Civica, Asset Vision, or Brightly. So let me demonstrate MCP working. So this demonstration will, we're connecting to a Civica CRM. Normally, if you want to check a CRM status, you need to open up the system, go in, search for it, and retrieve the information. Now we can use a chatbot to retrieve that information very quickly. So here we're asking, what is the status of Civica CRM 3025? So this goes off, it will call the Civica CRM and it will get the answer back for you. So we can see that the CRM is currently in progress. We can then go and ask, please get the details of Civica CRM 3025. So this will go off and get all of those details from the CRM. So we can see some basic information. We can see when the CRM was created. We can see the last modified date on it. And we can see that it seems like the CRM is related to a complaint about an old car located outside the front of someone's property. Now we can ask it to get a list of CRM details from a specific category. So here we're asking it to get it from the abandoned vehicle category and analyze some of the common patterns. So it's gone off, it's looked at all of the CRMs with that category. We can see what the key patterns are. We can see that 7 of the records have an involvement with a Mr. C. Jones, who is a council worker. We can see that a lot of cars that have been abandoned are a red colour. And we can see when the peak activity was. So we had 5 records in July. And we can finally go and ask, prepare some graphs or a chart based on that content and analyze it. So this is going to go off now and create us lots of charts. It will give us some key highlights, such as the growth trend. We can see the total amount of records, and we can see a monthly report. We can see what tasks are closed and which tasks are still in progress. And we can see some of the common keywords that are in the case descriptions. So that will be really valuable to be able to quickly understand data from CRMs. So finally, I'll just wrap up. Here's some shared resources. I think these might be the same resources that Fergal's already put into the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or by email. Thank you for listening.
Sarah-Jayne, that was fabulous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I feel after looking at that I'm going to go into a new lolly shop and start exploring more. So thank you again for the time and effort that you've put into making that presentation and sharing Symphony 3's experiences with us.
Thank you.
If there's any questions, please put them into the chat and I'll address them. I'm just going to, I've opened up the Menti for Sarah-Jayne's presentation. So please respond to that. That's going on in the background. So so that will be live. Don't hesitate to do that. So in the interest of time, I'm going to progress to the next phase. And like I said, if there are any questions that you want us to touch on, please put them into the chat and we'll address them through the wrap up. Yeah, so as you can see, Sarah-Jayne, you've been very well received. I'm yet to discover why we just don't have 10s. You know, people just have this reluctance to put a 10 on there. What else are they waiting for, Sarah-Jayne? So, okay, so here we are, you know, another series. We've concluded. This is, as we said at the start, this has been our 6th national series. And we've shared some bold ideas. We've had some bold conversations, and we've had some growth, both personal and organizational. We've talked about the results of the forums. So I'm just going to progress to what the key messages have been. So communication, and as has been evident throughout our presentations today, communication isn't just about talking. It's about finding out what's of interest and importance to people. From our perspective, we talked about the checklists. That starts the communication process, and really important. So inspect, don't expect is our key message. And from a process perspective, you know, the governance and the quality assurance side, there's a lot of emphasis placed on that. We talk about that and have talked about it consistently over the last couple of years. So, so this is a common theme. And again, it came out through our presenters today of what they shared with us. Future proofing and education, it's a continuous process. It's not a set and forget. So from that aspect, it's okay. So what's next? Okay, we've done that. What's next? What's next? We talked about incorporating A-SPEC as part of capital works process. So that is a continuous process, and it's evolving because we're looking at how project management frameworks are being utilized more extensively now, and how does A-SPEC integrate with the project management framework? We're always looking at addressing anomalies. And we had a conversation about providing other authorities data, and our position is that it's not the responsibility of the data gatherer or the surveyor or the data collator to provide other authorities data to a council if it's not their asset. If that is to occur, if you are an asset owner and that's what you want, we strongly recommend that you go to that other authority and enter into a data exchange agreement. It's going to be the most efficient way, and then you can create a different kind of relationship. Last year we started the Fireside chats. This year they featured strongly, and the reactions and feedback has been very favourable. I'd like, from all the presentations, I actually want to acknowledge Naomi Patterson from MNG with providing what I considered a really entertaining and refreshing look at A-SPEC, where she likened it to Frankenstein's monster. If this has you curious, please check out the video when it's released at the end of September. And speaking of which, here's what you can expect over the next short while, at least until the end of December this year. So we've got a number of tasks that we've taken on for ourselves, and particularly updated specifications. What we mean by that is that there's a number of anomalies that we've identified over the past 2 years, and we put out addendums to say, oh, you know, be aware of this change and that change. Well, we're going to incorporate all of those and release an updated version at the end of December, and then there will be no more addendums at that point in time. Ask Us Anything sessions. We commenced this about 2 months ago, and the objective is, if you want to take advantage of some free consulting, I will be online every Thursday at 11 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Come on, if you've got a particular issue, come on and ask. And happy to indulge you in that. Okay. This is the last. This is the last Menti poll, and you know, we ask it every year. Shall we do it again? Would you be attending next year? So, you know, looking forward to your responses for this. The Menti polls and the feedback that you give us outside of the polls is what has us coming back year after year, so that we can give you a great customer experience. If we're not giving you a great customer experience, don't sit back and accept it. Let us know, so that we know what we need to improve and what we need to address. So awesome. I love it. 10 out of 10 so far. So thank you very much. I apologize for going over time. I know it's only 3 or 4 minutes, but we've still gone over time, and we appreciate your patience in doing this. The poll is live. If you haven't had an opportunity yet to vote, please jump on. We really look forward to it. And Kelly, I think that pretty much answers the question that we raised for ourselves. You know, do we do it again next year?
Yeah, it's good to get some idea of the value that we're bringing, I guess, to the community. So you better get cracking and make it a bit more sharper, I think.
Thank you. I shall do that. So maybe we'll use AI more extensively next year, and
you should sink straight into AI and say, redo this fresh for next year.
We definitely will. So once again, I want to thank everybody who has contributed throughout, whether you've been a participant asking questions, posting something into the chat. Thank you very much for today. Thank you to you, Kelly, for all your work to get us to this point and keeping us relevant with our aesthetics. I'm glad that I've got somebody like you on the team. Thank you to Fergal Coleman. Thank you to James Mant, and thank you to Sarah-Jayne Webb. You know, we've had a fantastic dive into the world of AI, and it's certainly given me a lot to think about, and I hope that you've got what you wanted to get out of these forums. So on that note, I'll be here for a bit longer, but otherwise, have a great rest of the day, and look forward to being in communication with you at some point in time.